This is the Carson City Advisory Board to manage wildlife, held here at the Community Center starting at 4 p.m. Tamar, can you please take roll?
Chairperson Beamer.
Here.
Vice Chair Martin.
Present. Present.
Member Green.
Here.
Member Yannick.
Here.
A quorum's present.
Thank you. And was the meeting properly noticed and posted?
Yes, it was.
Thank you so much. So if everybody can join me in standing and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. At this time, we will entertain public comment and call for public comment. The public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Carson City Advisory Board to manage wildlife. No action may be taken upon a matter raised under this item of the agenda. Do we have any public comment at this time? Just remind everybody, if you could please state your name and sign in on the
Sure.
form there before you leave. That'd be great.
Do you intend to take public comment during any of the agenda items?
We'll see.
Because that's what I would hold my comments if you were going to take on the whole art access. It's up to you. I can comment now, or
It's number 8.
We don't even know if we're going to call any of those out, right?
Well, the lady gal from the department's going to talk about it, and the public may have some questions.
That's right. We have an agenda item on that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we will take public comment during that agenda item.
okay, then I'll hold my comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
So just as a reminder, anybody who gives public comment, please sign in at the podium in the front, and please identify yourself when you come to the podium. Seeing no other further public comment, CK, are you just signing in? Okay. Seeing no other public comment, I'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 4, which is a possible action item to approve the minutes of June 19th, from June 19th, 2017. Board, do we have any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes of June 19th with one revision to the minutes as follows. On page 4 of the minutes, under the motion, at 5/18/53, it has, at the bottom of that, it states the Tahoe Regional Planning Authority's inspection program. I'd like to change that from authority to agencies, as they are an agency, not an authority.
Is that noted, Tamar? Okay, thank you.
So that's my
All right.
motion.
All right, so we have a motion with a small amendment.
So Google's wrong.
I'm sorry?
I just joked. Google's wrong
Okay.
because I picked it up off of Google.
Okay, so motion, do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Mr. Yannick. Motion made by Mr. Martin. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 5, which is the adoption of our agenda today. Call for a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Martin, and seconded by Mr. Yannick. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Brings us to agenda item number 6, which is an informational item regarding disclosures. Any member of the advisory board may inform the chair of his intent to make a disclosure of a conflict of interest or an agendized item or relative to advisory board business. Disclosures of conflicts of interest must also be made at the time a specific agenda item is introduced. Are there any disclosures that the board would like to make? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 7. This is another informational item, an update and activity report on the Carson City Urban Wildlife Committee. I'm sure, Doug, you're going to talk about the coyote flyer we got, right? Is that correct? So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you if you'd like.
Mr. Chairman, a couple of things regarding urban wildlife. First of all, I got an email from the Parks and Rec Department that they are hiring a AmeriCorps person that will help with, among other things, urban wildlife issues. And I believe I don't know if it's a him or a her, that his first day of work is today. And they would like to come to the board in a future meeting and kind of get some feedback from us. Secondly, there's two things regarding urban wildlife that I asked Tamar to make some copies of and brought them here. And I think there's some extras for the public, and they're at the end of the row of right here. First of all, living with Nevada's urban coyotes on August 14th, NDOW will be holding a seminar on living with urban coyotes up in Reno at their Western Regional Office on Valley Road. It'll be a really good presentation from 6 to 8 p.m. I highly recommend people who are concerned and would like to know more about living with urban coyotes. Well, I think that's a longer seminar to put that on their calendar and to attend that. The second thing regarding urban wildlife that I'd like to bring to people's attention is the 8th annual Wood Duck event. And this is definitely an urban wildlife project. It's started a long time ago by Chris Nicolai, who is a Fish and Wildlife Service employee. I like to affectionately refer to Chris as Dr. Ducks, as he received a PhD in waterfowl up at UNR, and that man has more knowledge of waterfowl than anyone. But the 8th annual Wood Duck event is held in the city of Fallon, and this is on August 19th. Highly recommend people go. If you're really adventurous and you want to see something great, at 5:30 a.m. there is a duck banding, and they will actually have you help them band wood ducks. And noon, the doors open and they have a kid stuff adventure, and it's a really great thing. Then there's a spaghetti luncheon and a presentation and a fundraiser. There's great things that Chris has been doing. His whole purpose is to raise awareness, but also to understand the dynamics of wood ducks in Nevada, and also have a good idea on harvesting and the impact of harvesting of wood ducks on its future populations or its sustainable populations. Highly recommend everyone put that on their agenda to go to. And there are copies of that up here as well. And then lastly, I'll end with a picture that was in the Carson Now website on Saturday, and this is a picture of a mule deer in west side of Carson City, and there was him and his little brother that were attending a barbecue, but they're here, they're growing their antlers, they're in velvet right now, and they can get really cranky, so just be aware they're around Carson City right now. So those are the 3 items I wanted to report on.
Thank you, Vice Chair Martin. Appreciate that report. I too have a little bit as well. Oh, please.
I'd like to jump in here just very quickly. They're not just the west side. I live on Arrowhead, and we've got a couple over there that are almost this big, that are hopping around with several does. And early in the morning, so some of the joggers are having to take alternate routes, but that's okay.
Appreciate that, Mr. Green. So I will also bring a few incidents that to everybody's attention. So it's not just on the west side, it's just not on your side as well. I think we're seeing this throughout the entire city. We had a group of deer actually nibbling on all of our roses, and we live over off of East 5th Street up by the Eagle Valley's track up there. So that was interesting. My renter, who I rent a home over off of East Nye Lane, over here off of Lampa, and we have a lot in the back, and there was a 2 bucks back there fighting with each other. He couldn't figure out why his motion light kept going on and off, and they were fighting with each other in the back lot, and he got video and pictures of it. It was great, and I told him, listen, don't you dare start feeding those deer. So we did get a report of a woman on the west side who has kind of created a bird feeder, and she's putting food, deer pellets in there. And so that was reported to Department of Wildlife, and they I know, looked into it as well. The last thing I wanted to mention was at the last meeting, we had talked about some incidents regarding coyote attacks in some of our parks. And I went around to the different locations, and the city has done a great job of putting up signage that says, hey, this is a high prone area to coyotes. I took a picture of it to show anybody if they want to see it, but they're pretty good sized signs. And then on our national night out that we have here in Carson City every year, Parks Department had a booth, and they had those signs out, and they were handing out a ton of information on living with urban coyotes and urban wildlife. So I thought that was a really good outreach that we had there, and I will just couple Doug's comments about the duck event, the wood duck event in Fallon. I've been to it, the first one I went to, and what an amazing opportunity if you've never had a chance to go out and give back to and be a conservationist, right? Give back to helping our duck populations in the area. So great opportunity there. And with that, any further comments on urban wildlife? Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, toward the end of the last board meeting, somebody brought up the issue about bears being sighted over at the hospital, and I was asked to look into that. And the report is true. The head of hospital facilities, along with the vice president of operations at the hospital, met with the Department of Wildlife personnel. They had a discussion about the issue with the trash containers. The trash containers have since been regularly locked. And after that one incident, there have been no more reports of bears anywhere as near the cancer center or any place else on the campus. So I think, choking off the supply of food, I think solved the problem, and the hospital appreciates being made aware and the service that the Department of Wildlife did as far as reacting very quickly and instructing them or giving them some advice as to how to prevent this from happening again.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, carrying on to agenda item number 8. This is our consent agenda, and there's a number of items on the consent agenda. The items agendized here are consent agenda items. They are considered routine and may be acted upon by the advisory board to manage wildlife with one action or without extensive hearing. Although a member of the advisory board may request an item be pulled for separate discussion and action, the advisory board chair retains discretion in deciding whether or not to pull an item from the consent agenda. There will be no public comment unless an item is pulled. Oh, why is my agenda not saying that? I thought,
There was an agenda item 8 regarding Ash
I
Canyon.
apologize, everyone. I have an agenda that is not, does not have that on here, so I apologize about that. So let's retract that. Agenda item number 8 is an informational item, report on Ash Canyon access to Hobart Reservoir, and we've invited Don Baugh, who's our conservation educator for the Western region, to be here, as well as any member of the public as well. So we'll have you come up, Don, first and kind of give your report. And if I can, just real quick before you start, Don, I did reach out to Ann Bolger, or is that how you pronounce her name? Bollinger? Yeah, I apologize. And before she left on her lengthy vacation, and she said that she did give me a report on where we stand with regard to access through Ash Canyon. Nothing has changed there. They are really waiting for the FEMA process, just so everybody understands that, and to be able to get the funding and be able to make those repairs. And they estimated those repairs, Don, I'm sure you're going to allude to this, over a year out, right? So that was the report that we originally received here to the board. So nothing has changed there, and we had a great conversation with Leslie, who's their one of their staff persons there, their gals there for open space, and she also confirmed that some people had reported urban coyote attacks, that sort of thing. So I just wanted to let everybody know that. Go ahead, Don.
Okay.
State your name for the
As
record.
you said, I'm Dawn Baugh. I'm the Regional Outdoor Education Coordinator with the Department of Wildlife. Over the past several weeks, I've held a couple events over at Hobart, and I've received a little bit of backlash from the community. So I first want to address that. The 2 clinics that I've hosted up there have been a real vets event where it's disabled vets. We take them up there and we transport them in the vehicles. And the second was a kids event where we're transporting little kiddos all the way up the side of the mountain as well, ones that aren't capable, both populations not capable of doing the hike at this point. The Real Vets event we've been doing for over 10 years, so this is something that even with the road, the Ash Canyon Road closure, that we would still access with via key to not interrupt that streak that we have going. So the first thing that I want to address is the parks manage the roads. They take care of the roads. The department doesn't. We manage the water. And that's the very first thing that I have to address when I get a little bit of backlash. And the second one is our website is completely updated on the reports as far as the Ash Canyon Road being closed out right now and it being a keyed access. So if people wanted to check it prior to, they can find out some information as far as that goes. And then so speaking with Travis Hawks before, at the end of the winter, he went up with a couple of his seasonals, and the seasonals said that the roads were so washed out. There's big, trees in the middle of the road. It's completely washed out, not happening, nothing's moving for a while. So he was kind of the liaison for a while for me as far as scheduling my 2 events of what was going on, because we were going to attempt Ash Canyon. So,
And did you guys get access through Lakeview, is that correct?
yes,
Yeah, okay.
that's where we went, through off of Lakeview at the end of Hobart Road. There's a keyed access back there. That's where supposedly the Ash Canyon hike is shorter than that Hobart Road hike. So, yeah, I haven't hiked the Ash Canyon one, so I can't compare personally, but that's what I've been told. And then I also have a direct quote that Travis has been in contact with one of the Carson City representatives for Parks and Rec. That came from him via email that he sent me over. So I'm just going to read that for you guys. So it's a quote, direct. It says, I've been out several times, and another trip is planned this week to evaluate the conditions. The washout is not an easy fix. Most likely, we will need to carve into the hillside. As of right now, I have no idea what the cost of the repair will be. After this week's visit, I should be able to write a scope of work and coordinate some of our Public Works Department on hiring a contractor. However, I don't know if we'll be able to repair it this year. Also, I know several trees are down across the road in the higher elevations. With the FEMA assistance, all the work will need to be completed by the next fall. At the latest, the road should be open by next year. Feel free to stay in contact and inquire with the updates. So as of right now, they're saying fall of next year. And that's what I have.
Thank you, Dawn. Any discussion from the board? Any questions for Dawn? Seeing none, we'll open it up to public comment.
Thanks a lot. She tore me up. Actually, very proud of her. Dawn is excellent. She is a very good educator, and she is doing projects and things that I'm not sure NDOW has really seen, or the rest of us has seen in a very, very long time. So I'm really with her on this. Now then. Yes, the Dawn spoke about what Ms. Bollinger had to say. I'll start mine off with horse, bike, or hike only. That's the way you get to Hobart. Horse, bike, or hike through Lakeview and Hobart Road. That's about it. And until Travis, as was spoken by Dawn, did some work up there, it was virtually impassable and in extraordinarily rough shape. What's interesting about this is that the municipalities and property owners have a key to the gate, as where the rest of us do not. I guess I could be kind of snarfy about the horse and the bike and the hike thing, because there is no other way in there unless you go by helicopter and you're dropped in. As the road going up, that I always mess this up, what's the road? Ash Canyon is absolutely a disaster, and it's not going to be an undisaster for a very long time. What this does, I mean, it's really great that and please don't take this at all wrong, any of the parties, but it's really nice that you can hike, bike, and horse up there, horse ride up there, but that just leaves about 89% of the rest of the fishing public out of it, okay? Old-timers like me that are so ancient that can't, you know, it would take 2 days camping to hike up that road, up Lakeview to get to the water alone. So it's a lost fishery except for those 3 groups of people that I'm talking about, that we mentioned earlier. So it's a travesty. It's truly a disaster. Hobart is a phenomenal fishery if you can get to it. So Ash Canyon's normally a 4.5 mile trip to Hobart, according to Ann from Parks and Rec. Ash Canyon Road basically at this time has about 1.2 mile section that no longer exists. It's gone. It's toast. It's impassable by any means. Ann says she's bringing an engineer, but believes it will be a year before anything repairs might occur, FEMA monies, and there's a 1-year cutoff according to Bollinger. So something's going to have to be done or those FEMA funds will be gone, period. Okay, so according to Chris Vasey and Jan Schoberg, did I get that right? Okay, who I spoke to, who was very into it. Yeah. But they even said that Hobart isn't in the greatest shape to begin with. The municipalities and owners have a key property to the gate. There are owners up there, of course, you have the municipality of Virginia City that owns a good chunk of those water rights from Hobart, and as they should. those in charge of the water that goes to Virginia City are the primary interest, not the fishery, unfortunately, but fortunately. The fishery is actually wholly secondary or tertiary. Frankly, in my opinion, the fishery, fishing or camping, to me, the fishery is basically, it's a sidebar. As far as the horse access and like that, well, it's open to those who are physically able to get there. I have no problem with the horse, bike, or hike that was brought in. It's kind of an interesting thing. It's like the state parks is the authority or the municipality, the authority on the Hobart Road, and Carson City is the authority on the Ash Canyon Road. So between the two, I can't get there. And a lot of people can't. So that's pretty much what I had to say about it. It's an incredible fishery. I am glad that, was it the Minnow and Me? The Minnow and Me is able to get up there. I think it's a fantastic thing. The kids are our future, and man, it's a great thing to go up there. For the kids in the city to be able to go up there and see the beauty of Hobart, it's a lovely thing. I'll accept your questions, and if there are any, and thank you for hearing me out, Mr. Chairman and advisory board members.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Any questions for Mr. Bailey? Seeing none, anybody else with public comment?
Good evening. My name's Carson City, and I'm an avid fly fisherman, and I fish Hobart regularly when I can access it. It is a crown jewel, it really is. NDOW has done a wonderful job managing this fishery. We work with NDOW. I work also with the High Sierra Flycasters Club out of Carson Valley, and we work with NDOW on a number of educational programs. And they've gone out of the way so that those programs can continue to happen. And Hobart's a fantastic place to hold those. In normal years, we actually split transportation between Ash Canyon Road and Hobart Road because we can only take government vehicles in on Hobart. So, I mean, this year we made it happen just using government vehicles. Fantastic event for the vets, and I believe the kids' event was also just awesome. We like to get that road open up as soon as we can. I know there's all kinds of funding avenues. One thing I like to note, it's my understanding that NDOW has changed their stocking program, so that those fish, that lake's actually not getting stocked while at this time because doesn't have the access. So in effect, we're giving it a rest. And as soon as you can get us back in there, we'd be really, really pleased. And until then, well, I guess we'll just make do and hoof it up the road. It's, I think, a 3-mile hike from where it's gated.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Any questions from the board? Seeing none. Any further public comment at this time? Seeing none, we will move on to agenda item.
Well, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I think there's a couple of things that need to be said, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
The Carson City Wildlife Advisory Board is to solicit advice from sportsmen in the community regarding hunting and fishing and trapping, but hunting and fishing. And I think I've just heard enough from the public, and I know other members of the public are also concerned about limited access this year. We certainly cannot take any action that will open that road, but we can certainly take action to encourage opening that road. It's an informational item at this particular time, so therefore no action can occur today. But I would certainly like this to, I would like to have that road open as soon as possible. I'd also like to know why we couldn't be looking at alternatives such as opening up the other access road into it during this particular time when we don't have access through Ash Canyon? I know those questions can't be answered right now, but perhaps we could bring this forward again in our September meeting if it's going to really be a year out for this to happen. It'd be really great to find out if there can be coordination between the property owners of Lakeview access if we can't get access up Hobart Ash Canyon Road. So I'm not asking for any action. I'm just saying this is something important to the sportsmen of Carson City, to myself, and I would like to encourage us to agendize this so that we can take action to make recommendations to either the city or other parties that have the capability of providing access to that road. I mean, to that fishery resource. We have so few fishery resources in Carson City, and this is not only a great fishery resource for Carson City, it's one of the best alpine lakes in Nevada. So anyway, there's my 2 cents on it.
Anybody else from the board? Go ahead, Tamara, I'm sorry.
I don't know if the TV's having problems with it, but the audio's really bad on your mic, Doug, for some reason.
Well, testing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2,
No.
3. No? Well, I'll just talk less then.
So do you need me to reiterate what he said or not?
I'll figure it out.
Okay,
The TV picked it up, I'm good.
okay. All right, any further comment? Mr. Yannick?
One question, because I know that every time in the past, when we've been working with NDOW in past years about going out there and trying to take certain species of fish out or, help them do some clearing up there, the Fly Fishing Club has, gotten a lot of volunteers that weekend because we were able to ride up in the department's trucks. And it made it a lot more palatable than trying to walk up that road. It's a long hike to get there by foot. The access to that, open that gate, you can see there's probably 17 or 18 locks on that gate. A lot of it are, various state agencies that have a key. Private landowners, the city gets in there to get up to their water tank that's sitting above Lakeview. So there are a lot of people who do have access. Now, trying to open that to the general, there must be a reason why it's never been left open to the general public. Whether it's because of, at one time, that was the main route to get up to that pumping station, and with fuel. Now that they ran a fuel line up there several years back, that one use is no longer necessary, but at the same time, it's a major thoroughfare to get from here to to Hobart and then up to Marlette. So I don't know whose road that it belongs to, whether it's a state road. I think it's shown on a map as a state road, but its access is limited, by, you can't get past the gate. And I'd like to find out more about that, to be able to, support what Doug wants to do. I think it's a great idea, but I don't know who we have to get approval, how many people we have to get approval from.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that was the, oh, by the way, Tamar, how is that? Is that good? That was the gist of my comments, is to get those questions answered, because obviously we can't do anything about it. I don't know who controls the gates and why access from the public is not there. I'm sure it has to do with fire. I'm sure it has to do with safety. I'm sure it has to do with a lot of reasons. But just because there's reasons it can't be done doesn't mean that there's obstacles can be overcome when there is a great need. So anyway, thank you again.
Go ahead. Anybody else? Okay.
Continuing on with what Doug was saying, perhaps if we approach the city at a Board of Supervisors meeting and raise that question at that point, one of us attends, a Board of Supervisors meeting and brings it up in public comment, maybe we can find out who's in charge or explain the reason why we think it'd be nice if something could be done to alleviate the problem and then take the pressure off everybody trying to get up impassable road of Ash Canyon.
Thank you. Does anybody know when Hobart closes, what day it is? I forget. Yeah.
September,
The season, this is Kurt telling you again, the season normally runs until September 30th.
right.
Okay.
I was just noting that when we do drive up Ash Canyon, we drive to the edge of the state park. And there's a parking area and it's gated and we walk in another half mile.
Right.
And that's actually a good thing. It reduces the pressure on that lake.
Well, plus the infrastructure of the road, I think that's the biggest concern.
And
So-
I do not believe that when you drive up Hobart.
It's right
Road,
there.
I do not believe there's parking at the state park boundary. And that might be an issue that you would have to overcome if the public were allowed up that road to the state park boundary. I would be surprised if the state park allowed us to drive into the park.
I would be surprised too.
Sure, my name is Kurt Azalinga. Thank you.
And it wasn't my suggestion that people drive all the way there. Let's find out what the barriers are and see if they can be overcome.
Okay. Any further comment from the board? All right. Okay, carrying on to, so we will work on that for our September meeting. Although I think unfortunately it'll be a little too late for anybody to really participate, but I think Doug's right. We should, the public has a concern, we should bring it in front of some folks. So hopefully here, if we do that, if we're proactive in doing that now, maybe they can possibly come up with something before that if possible. I don't know, but. All right, carrying on to agenda item number 9. And now agenda item number 9 is the consent agenda. These items are, again, routine and maybe acted upon by the advisory board. We don't typically hear any kind of public comment unless an advisory board member wants to take any of the items off the consent agenda for discussion. So with that, I will open it up to the board. Does any board member want to take any items off the agenda for discussion? Seeing none, I will go ahead and entertain a motion of support.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like a motion to accept all of items labeled as 9A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H.
I second.
So motion by member Yannick, seconded by member Green. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. All right. And just for the public's benefit, these items are included in the commission's supporting materials. I would suggest that if you have any concerns about them, by all means, take a look at that and petition the commission on them. There's some interesting things going on in the state of Nevada and some neat things here that the commission is doing, I think, to really better wildlife in the state of Nevada. All right, carrying right on to agenda item number 10, which is a discussion regarding non-regulatory agenda items as part of the August 11th and 12th, 2017 Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners meetings. These are any item listed under the consent agenda or any items that those items listed under the rest of the commission's agenda that anybody would like to discuss. I'll bring that to the board. Anything? Seeing none, we will open it up for public comment under this section. Any public comment? Seeing none, we will carry on to agenda item number 11, and that is a discussion for possible action regarding the advisory board commitments to the August 11th and 12th, 2017 Wildlife Commission meeting that's going to be held in Minden, as well as the September 22nd and 23rd, 2017 commission meetings in Las Vegas. So are any of the board members going to be attending that? Let me just throw this out. On Saturday is the County Advisory Board workshop that the department puts on for county advisory boards. It's recommended that all advisory board members attend that if they possibly can. Director Wassley from the Department of Wildlife sent out an email reminding everybody of that. There will be discussing two items that I think is of importance to a lot of the county advisory boards on that day, and they're mainly the. Let me get the updated agenda here. Are mainly under agenda item number 19. They'll be discussing in the workshop the mule deer management program, as well as evaluation and review of landowner deer and antelope compensation tags, and then they're going to have a wildfire update as well. So all of the CAB members are encouraged, especially since we live so close, are encouraged to attend both those days. I will have to say that I have a conflict on that day. I have to fly out actually Friday morning, and I won't be back until Monday. So if the vice chair or any of the other board members can attend, that would be good. And again, all should try and attend at least that day, if possible. Okay.
I intend to be there.
Okay.
Yeah, I will too.
Yes, both days.
Perfect.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm planning on being there Saturday.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much. And the next date was in the one in Vegas for September 22nd and 23rd. I will be, again, flying to a conference that weekend, of all weekends. So I apologize. I will not be able to attend that. So, Mr. Yannick, are you planning on attending that? And then,
Glad to do that.
okay, perfect. So you'll make all your arrangements and stuff for that. And, I did inquire to see if the commission was going to be televising this or having a video conference location, and I was told that they were not. So,
Again, no.
I don't know if, unfortunately, we won't have that opportunity. But any further discussion on this item? So everybody's clear on the dates, right?
Yes.
So that tentatively allows us to have our next scheduled board meeting on September 18th, 2017. And Tamar, will you work on letting us know where that's going to be? Whether it's going to be in this room or?
If it's a short meeting, we can have it in this room.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. If it's a short meeting, we can have it in this room because there will be a follow-up meeting. I think the following meeting that evening is open space, so.
Okay. So, board members, I'll throw this out to you guys. Do you recall, is the September meeting when we decide on fishing rigs, or is that October?
No, there is no meeting in October, and I think fishing regs we already did this year.
Right, so it's probably,
So I don't know how long that meeting will
Okay.
be.
okay. Okay, so carrying on to agenda item number 11, our next CAB meeting again, that we just finished that, I apologize. Agenda item number 12, or I'm sorry, is that right?
That's done.
I'm sorry, 13, my bad. I'm working off of an agenda that's missing an item, so I apologize, everyone. Okay, so agenda item number 13 is future agenda items. So I'll open it up to the board for that. Anybody?
I'll just reiterate, it'd be great to agendize a possible possible action item regarding access to Hobart Reservoir.
Yeah, I'd like to make further comment on that. It may be too late for us this year, but they're talking about the access through Ash Canyon not being until fall of 18.
Right.
So it could very well make a huge difference for next summer.
Okay. All right, we'll make sure that gets, an item gets put on, and we'll invite some folks to come and present some items on that. Anybody else? All right, see none. Any public comment at this time?
Hi, I was looking for the right opportunity to introduce myself, and I may have missed the mark a little bit, but my name is Mark Enders, and I'm wildlife biologist with NDOW in the Wildlife Diversity Division. So we're responsible for managing the state's non-consumptive wildlife resources, and I just wanted to come today to make myself available to the board or the public to answer any questions that there might be regarding item 9F at this week's commission meeting, which is regarding commercial collection of reptiles in the state of Nevada.
Oh, yeah.
This is going to be the first time this has come before the commission since 1998, so we're looking at almost 20 years, and there have been several presentations at recent commission meetings that are building up to this moment where the commission will actually have an opportunity to decide whether or not to change that particular regulation. So I just wanted to be here this afternoon to make myself available. Sorry? It's Mark, M-A-R-K, Enders, E-N-D-E-R-S. And I'm actually just down on Scrooge Street in the Bryan building. This is my first time here, sorry.
Mark, a question. Several meetings back when we were in Las Vegas, they took us out on a field trip to,
Right.
and it was eye-opening.
Yeah.
I mean, to see what goes on, but really it was eye-opening to see how many other people are trapping reptiles using those pit traps.
Pitfall traps. that's
Yeah,
right.
pitfall traps.
Which is
and-
not allowed, actually.
Well, yeah, right, but we were shown quite a few.
Right.
And the commercialization of it was amazing. That when we heard the stories about the value of some of the reptiles that are captured and sold overseas or to collectors here in the United States, that's got to be controlled. I agree with what we're looking at and what we're trying to do, and that it's been going on for way, way too long. With regards to the amount and the quantity and the types of reptiles that are being shipped, put in a box and then shipped to Europe or wherever, it's sad, really sad.
Well, I'm glad you had the opportunity. Jason Jones is our herpetologist, and he put that field trip together, and he's just a wealth of knowledge on reptiles in this state, and he's done a fantastic job sort of building to this moment. And
He also brought a whole bunch of his creepy crawlers into the meeting, but they were in glass jars, thank the Lord,
So if I may, Mark, I appreciate you being here. I apologize. I should have come up to you and asked you, if you had anything that you wanted me to go over. So I apologize about that. I will tell you, I think, I'm not going to speak for the rest of the board members, but I think by the vote, I absolutely agree with the action that's being taken to modify that regulation. I agree. When I looked into this and looked at the stats on that, of how many reptiles are taken from the state of Nevada and sold commercially, and that when we compare ourselves to all the other states around, every other state has regulation, whereas we do not. So it's about time that we actually are doing something about that, right? And I think you'll agree that according to some of the information I got from your colleagues, I think you'll agree that Nevada has probably more living ecosystems than almost any other state there is in the western part of the United States, right? And so because of our desert and what it provides, and just an amazing thing. And I too your colleague down in Vegas who presented that class, we took a group of Boy Scouts down. And he did a full-blown 2-day presentation and took us out into the Nevada desert and showed us things that I don't think anybody even knew were here in the state of Nevada, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely true. And,
pretty
you
cool.
know, he's one of the best we've got, you know, and he did a great job. And I think one of the fantastic things he's been able to do over his tenure here is actually compile data that we can actually present, you know, to the public or to the commission, to the different county advisory boards that really illustrate exactly what's going on out there. Because like you said, it's kind of the unknown thing that's happening out there. And, you know, when you think about 14,000 reptiles leaving our state annually, it's just kind of staggering. So I'm glad
Unbelievable
you were
numbers.
able to participate and sort
Yeah.
of see that.
Yeah.
Mr. Martin.
Mr. Chairman. And Mark, I didn't know that you were with that particular program, so I'll echo his resentment, or not resentment, regrets that we didn't have you talks previously. But one thing you need to know is we did read that, and we do support it. Questions for you. Are you familiar with our local reptiles?
I am, to some degree. You know, I've done a handful of reptile projects with Jason, but he's definitely the ultimate.
Well, where my question is, and I'd love some education on this, is I'm familiar with about 3 species that live right around in my yard. We have the western fence lizard, which are quite prevalent.
Yeah, very
And then we also have the leopard lizard. And there's one more, I forget its name. Are any of the local species, are any of those being trapped locally and sold? Or is it more of the exotic ones that you find in the Mojave Desert?
So the commercial collectors are known to visit the Great Basin and trap lizards that are found in northern Nevada. And I think, you know, there's probably a market for just about any of the species you named. We do have some species that are state protected by our NACs, and some of those would be found here as well, and they would not be allowed to capture those. But to answer your question, hopefully, I think it's kind of a general collection effort where they would most likely find a market for anything they were able to successfully capture.
I remember the other species that I'm thinking of, and that's the horned lizard. And they're very popular, and I know kids like to collect them and hold them
Sure,
for a
yeah.
while because they're about the most docile and easy to catch of all lizards.
That's right.
It's like a miniature dinosaur, right? It's-
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great educational piece, actually.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Sure thing.
I grew up on the desert, the southern deserts, and a long time ago. And there were lack of any kinds of rules back then, too. And even back then, some of these, especially non-aggressive lizards, were being trapped by the thousands as a food source for other reptiles and birds and things that people had. And it was, even back then, it was a bit of a problem out on the deserts and people driving around with pickup trucks with 500-600 rattlesnakes in the bed.
Right.
You know, in pulling into gas stations and things. And we have some extremely exotic snakes that are very, very rare, and it'd be horrible to see them disappear. The coral snake is a good example.
Right.
They don't like people, and they hide very well on their own, but everyone that's taken unnecessarily, because I honestly don't believe, as toxic as they are, there's anyone in California, Nevada, Arizona has ever been bitten by one.
Right.
So, yeah, but the trappers are out there after them.
Yeah, and you know, it wasn't until 1986 that it really became part of Nevada wildlife regulation. You know,
Yeah.
Before that, like you say, it was kind of the Wild West of the reptile world.
Yeah.
And so the commission did put a permitting process in place. And I think one of the things that some of these sensitive species have been, I guess, dealing with is the fact that there are no limits. If you can imagine these permits,
Mhm.
no bag limits, so to speak.
Yeah, it
So
might be time.
We've had actually data now showing that some of our Nevada species of reptiles are experiencing declines in some of these hotspot locations. So, but you know, that information is all, I think, already in the public record, and there will be another presentation this week as well. So I'm sure you know, Jennifer Newmark, our division administrator, will be at the commission meeting this week presenting on
Thank
it.
you.
Well, thank you, Mark. One question I have for you is, do you guys anticipate any pushback on this from organizations? If so, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I'm definitely not involved with commercial collection directly. I think just through my division, I've gleaned a lot of information and have read a lot of the data that we have in our hands at the moment. And it's my understanding that it is a relatively small number of permittees who are responsible for all of that collection that I mentioned, 14,000 reptiles per year. So I would imagine that there's some amount of their personal livelihood is at stake here too. And so I would imagine some pushback, but it's really hard for me to say for sure.
Seeing none. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you coming up and, again, apologize for not getting with you ahead of time and saying, hey, what are you here for?
No, that's all right. I'll speak up first next time.
All right, sir. Thank you. All right. Any further public comment?
Okay, I'm just gonna add two things. On a positive note, if Hobart doesn't get open to the public before the end of next month, there will be much bigger fish out there next year, right? That's the first thing.
We hope.
Second thing, and if maybe a little bit of resolution to the problem, but I'll pitch it anyway. I can always use more instructors. If they want to drive kids and vets up there, have them hit me up and they can drive one of those vehicles up there firsthand. So
I like your style, Don.
Can you identify yourself again?
Don Bott.
Thank you.
Any further public comment at this time? Mr. Volz, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman. Fred Volz for the record. I think there's some misinformation going on regarding the hospital situation, because as of a few days ago, those dumpsters were not locked.
Really?
And if the plan is to actually put locks on the enclosures, not on the dumpsters, that's not really going to solve the problem. So I've heard nothing from the hospital chairman of the board or the CEO of the hospital regarding this. And it takes 3 to 4 weeks to receive an actual locking dumpster from Waste Management. And the reason that's apparent is because Eagle Valley Children's Home has put one on order to take care of their problem, and they're up in the same neighborhood. So I would like to encourage that under item 4, when you're discussing, item 7, when you're discussing the AmeriCorps volunteer, that person be deputized to check out, starting with the commercial installations in town, to see what the compliance factor is, because they produce the most trash of any one site in the community versus a residential. So they could be looking at the college, at Ormsby Acute Care, and some of the other facilities that may or may not be handling their trash properly, because it's not just about bears, it's about other wildlife going into the containers.
Any questions for Mr. Volz?
Yeah,
Yes.
Fred, was there any one location or the locations that you noticed or saw that were?
They're
Were
all a problem. There are about
Wa-
8 different dumpster sites
Yeah.
for hospital facilities.
Was it, because originally the problem was over at the Cancer Center. And when I talked to the vice president of operations and the guy who's in charge of all the plant maintenance, I put them on a spot about that, and they told me, no, it was under control and it wasn't anymore. And I appreciate you bringing it back up again, that's not really the case.
Well, I was told that they were going to install cameras and have their security people patrol the situation, but they're not.
By whom were you
This was by
told?
the vice president of operations
Oh,
of the hospital.
Michelle?
Joy, yes.
Yeah.
But that's not really going to solve the problem, because unless they're there and they know what to do, which is not really the case for hospital security. They need somebody from NDOW to know what to do in that situation. They're really going to be helpless.
Well, NDOW they did meet with NDOW.
Well, they did, and they actually, Carl Lackey installed a trap up around the Eagle Valley Children's Home. They didn't
Yeah.
catch any bears,
Yeah.
but they were there. So when I looked at the dumpsters last, the enclosures were wide open, the lids were open, there were no locks on anything, and until they have a wildlife-proof container, they really won't have solved their problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Bowles, if I can, please, please, go ahead,
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Please stay there for just a second. Yeah, because I just want to throw in, I was a cop in Incline Village for a while, and I agree 100%. A video camera and being on patrol doesn't mean a thing. I spent 3 days a week chasing the same bears away from the same places. And you flash your light and they run away and you leave and go on patrol again. As soon as you go around the corner, they're back. That doesn't solve the problem. It takes the bear containers. I agree with you 100%, and I don't know why those weren't ordered. I mean, they got the yard where they keep them up here on the hill off of Deer Run Road. I don't know why it's so difficult.
Well, it's still unresolved as far as I'm aware, just to update you on it. Thank you.
So real quick, Mr. Vols,
Yes.
So do you know of any other occurrences besides the occurrences that were brought in front of us at our last meeting? Has it continued to happen?
Well, I don't think we really know because there's no way of monitoring those dumpsters. There's no camera on them. Unless a human being saw it happening.
Or they
wouldn't
found
know.
trash all over the place, right?
Right, but the thing is, there are birds, there are possums, there are raccoons, there are all sorts of other wildlife. They're gonna go into that trash for the same reason the bears would. So just from basic sanitation alone, not about just the bears, they really need to manage their trash, and that applies to all people in this town, whether they're business owners or
Yeah,
residents.
it's written in the municipal code.
Yes,
so-
it is, but
So it's-
unfortunately, until we have the trash franchise up for negotiation in about a year again, that's really gonna be the moment at which hopefully this board will speak up as well as people in the community who are concerned.
Okay, thank you so much.
I'd like to comment too, that you mentioned raccoons. They can be a whole lot more dangerous than the bear. They're smaller, you don't notice them until you're right on top of them, and they're mean little critters.
And there are more of them.
And there are more of them, and kids going to school and off to play and stuff, it could be very serious if we let that get carried away, especially with those large commercial dumpsters.
All right. So I just want to let everybody know that I did talk to Carl Lackey about the incidents. He did verify that he did try to put a trap up. They actually put trail cameras up to see if they could see a bear coming into the area. They didn't get anything on the trail cameras, as well as I talked to Karen Aboud, who's the supervisor for that ward, and let her know of the issue as well. She wasn't aware of anything that had happened. People in the city weren't aware of anything that was going on. So I think that they did some outreach since then and made them aware that, they probably need to look at getting some locked containers. And she said to me that it's a problem because the waste management up here on the hill, they don't have locked containers because they have this contract that they just want one person being able to go and pick the container up, and they don't want that person getting out of the vehicle and all this stuff, and it's written in their contract. So you're absolutely right that there's a little bit of a hindrance there and some pushback by waste management having locked containers, and saying that, we're going to have an amendment to your contract if you guys want to mandate that. So there is a little bit of political stuff going on there, but I did bring it to Karen's, to her attention, and she said that she will discuss that with the Board of Supervisors, with the other supervisors as well, so, okay?
Well, the Eagle Valley Children's Home executive director had no problem getting a locking dumpster commercial. So, and they're receiving their service free because they're a nonprofit. So if they can do it, the hospital should be able to do it, and anybody else as well.
That sounds like it to me as well. I agree. All right. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Any further public comment at this time? Anybody? All right. Seeing none, we will call for adjournment.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Second.
Aye.
Second, and aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody being here. Mark, can you come up real quick?